Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Shunyavadi Paschatya Sitarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we're reading from Transcendental Diary, the Harisori Prabhu in Sri Vrindavan Dham. So, Mataji, are you able to translate? No. Okay. Sorry. So we are reading the Transcendental Diary, and it's at the point where Prithu Prabhu and so yesterday we were reading how Prithu Prabhu, he was asking Srila Prabhupada something, and I'll just read the previous verse so we have some context. We returned to the temple along the back road. Prithu and Vedavyas Prabhus, the two Germans, also accompanied Prabhupada, walking just behind him. About halfway to the temple, Srila Prabhupada stopped suddenly. Half turning, he raised his cane up across the chest of a surprised Prithu and asked him, "So you are from Germany, is there any difficulty?" Prithu smiled nervously. "No, not anymore, Srila Prabhupada." "So when are you going back to Germany?" Prabhupada asked him warmly. Prithu said they were planning to leave right away, within a day. Prabhupada gave them a broad smile. With his eyes widening, he said, "Stay for at least 3 weeks. Enjoy the spiritual atmosphere." The two men grinned and their faces glowed with appreciation at Srila Prabhupada's thoughtfulness and kind consideration. Accordingly, they have adjusted their tickets and extended their stay for another few weeks. Srimad Bhagavatam class was on 1:17, the famous Atmaram verse. Srila Prabhupada had Pradyumna read out not only the verse, but most of the purport before he spoke. He told us that Lord Chaitanya had explained this verse in 64 different ways, proving that Krishna is all attractive. He said that since Krishna is Purna or perfect, if we fix our minds on the lotus feet of Krishna, everything will follow very perfectly. That is promised by Krishna. Tesam satayita yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. If one is engaged always in love and affection, not as official love, ecstatic love, spontaneous that is wanted. That example is here in Vrindavan. At least we get information of Vrindavan from the Shastras, from Srimad Bhagavatam, how spontaneously the inhabitants of Vrindavan, the gopis and the cowherd boys, and the birds, beasts, the calves, the animals, the trees, everyone, even the flies, the bees, the insect, even the dust, the grass, they're all Chinmaya, spiritual. They're not material, but they are attracted to Krishna in different varieties. He explained that Krishna has a variety of energies, both spiritual and material. And if we study things carefully, we can understand how these energies are working. Just as a typewriter does not work by itself, but is merely an instrument operated by a person. Similarly, Prabhupada said, material nature is not working independently. Like this temple, it is a composition of earth, water, and fire. Tejo Vari Mrit Vini Mayaha. Tejo means fire, and Vari means water, and Mrit means earth. So, what is this building? You have collected earth and shaped it into a brick, and then put it with water, and then put into the fire, it becomes brick. Then you smash it, powder it, it becomes mortar. Then you set up. In this way, the fire, water, air, earth has not made this nice temple. It is the person, the brain, the engineer, the architect they have made. He said that in the Western world, people say that God is great, but from the Vedic literature, we find out how God is great. You cannot find such information anywhere in any book throughout the whole world. So there is no question of studying Vedas from a sectarian point of view. For the sake of knowledge, everyone should study this Vedic literature. Hare Krishna. So, Srila Prabhupada is explaining the Atmarama verse, and he explains how the devotees in Vrindavan, they are on the spontaneous platform. And so what we are doing is called sadhana bhakti. So we practice some regulative principles of devotional service. So at the end, we want to awaken this love that is already within us. So that is why Srila Prabhupada gave us these standards. These are parts of sadhana bhakti, right? He asked us to do, like yesterday I was listening, and he was saying the devotees have no time to waste. 24 hours a day they're engaged in devotional service. So from morning till evening, you have your full day packed in devotional service, right? So this is sadhana bhakti. So we follow the instructions of the spiritual master. This is sadhana bhakti, right? And then slowly you get the love that is, it's just like, for example, seed has the potential to become a tree, right? But the tree is not there yet. So you have to keep watering the seed so the tree eventually comes out. The potential is there for the tree to come out. So similarly, the Krishna consciousness is dormant in every living entity. So when you water it by the practice of bhakti yoga, then that tree slowly grows. But it's very important that we, like Maharaj always focuses, we keep the standards that Srila Prabhupada gave very, we do not deviate from the standards. Right? He gave so many instructions, and that is why we also read these memories of Srila Prabhupada every day, and we study his books, because he said, I will live forever in my books. So it's important what standards he gave when it comes to so many things. There are so many details also he spoke about, right? It is said, yesterday I was speaking to Prabhu and we were sharing that attention to detail is a sign of love. When you are when you are serving someone, even the smallest detail, if you are able to um, understand the person you are serving, even for the smallest detail, that is a sign of love. Once I was hearing from Shruta Kirti Prabhu, and he was sharing that Srila Prabhupada said there are three types of servant. The first type of servant, the first class, understands the mood of the master without even the master saying what he wants. And the second type of servant does what the master says exactly according to that. The third type of servant, even after saying so many times, does not do according to what the master wants. So he was sharing that once when he was the servant, he would just, sometimes the fan would be turning and he would just look at the fan. Srila Prabhupada would just look at the fan And then Shrutakirti Prabhu would know Prabhupada wants the fan to be turned off. So this was a first class servant, so a first class servant knows the mood of the spiritual master and follows the instructions accordingly. So Srila Prabhupada, Jayadvaita Maharaj, wrote this book about the standards of Kirtan that Srila Prabhupada also wanted, because again, attention to detail is a sign of love. When you are dealing with Krishna, we try to be, even for the smallest detail, we try to make it very nicely, right? And this is sadhana bhakti. Um, this is how we develop love for Krishna. We might think we have some good ideas what Krishna likes, but that is mostly our mental speculation. We may think, oh, Krishna will be happy in this way, in that way. But we don't really know what Krishna wants or Krishna likes. But Srila Prabhupada, he gives us the standards, how we do things. And then when we follow that, then we eventually develop Krishna consciousness. That is something that just came to my mind. Does Maharaj would like to add anything? So we'll stop here and move on to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, chapter 6, text 155. Yaya Kshetragya Sakti Sa Vesitan Ripasarvaga Samsaratapan Akhilan Avapnoti Atras Sanatan Yaya Kshetragya Saktisa Vesitan Ripasarvaga Samsaratapan Akhilan Avapnoti Atra Sanatan Avapnoti Atra Santatan Yaya Kshetragya Sakti Cha Sa Vesitan Ripasarvaga Samsaratapan Akhilan Avapnoti Atra Santatan
Jaya Kshetrajini Saktisa
Yaya Kshetragya Saktisa
Stita Nipasa Padaga
Vestitan Ripasarvaga Samsaratapan Akhilan
Avapnoti Atra Santatam
Avapnoti Atra Santatan Yaya Kshetragya Shaktisha Vestitanri Prasarvaga Samsaratapanakhilam Avanoti Atra Santatam. Yaya Kshetragya Shaktisha Vestitanri Prasarvaga Samsaratapanakhilam Avanoti Atra Santatam. Word for word. Yaya, by which Kshetragya Shakti, the living entities known as the Kshetragya potency. Sa, that potency. Vestita, covered. Nripa, O king. Sarvaga, capable of going anywhere in the spiritual or material worlds. Samsara tapan, miseries due to the cycle of repeated birth and death. Akilan, all kinds of. Avapnoti, obtains. Atra, in this material world. Santatan, arising from suffering or enjoying various kinds of or enjoying various kind of reactions to fruitive activities. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. O king, the Kshetragya Shakti is the living entity. Although he has the facility to live in either the material or spiritual world, he suffers the threefold miseries of material existence because he is influenced by the avidya, nescence potency, which covers his constitutional position. There's no purport. So we move on to text 156. Taya tirohitat vacha shakti kshetragya samgita sarva bhuteshu bhupala tarat tara tarat amyenam parate. Translation. This living entity covered by the influence of nescence exists in different forms in the material condition. O king, he is thus proportionately freed from the influence of material energy to greater or lesser degrees. Forward. The material energy acts on the living entity in different degrees according to how he acquires the association of the three modes of material nature. There are 8.4 million species of life, some inferior, some superior, and some mediocre. The gradations of the bodies are calculated according to the covering of material energy. In the lower categories, including aquatics, trees, plants, insects, birds, and so forth, spiritual consciousness is almost non-existent. In the mediocre category, the human form of life, spiritual consciousness is comparatively awakened. In the superior life form, spiritual consciousness is fully awakened. Then the living entity understands his real position and tries to escape the influence of material energy by developing Krishna consciousness. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Akshuram Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swavadantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale. Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Dinami Namaste Saraswati. Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisheshanadi Vasachakarine. So the chapter is the liberation of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in discussion with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And this particular verse, actually the one before this, these two verses are from the Vishnu Puran. Vishnu Puran is one of the Puranas, right? So basically, there are Puranas in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Right? So Vishnu Puran is one of the Purans in the mode of goodness, actually transcendental because it talks about the Supreme Personality. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu here is quoting different sastras in order to convince Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya that what he is trying to say, that the living entities, they are different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the Supreme Personality is there, the living entity is another energy. This is a marginal energy right in between the spiritual and the material energy, right? And the living entity is prone to be influenced by the material energy. And Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that the material energy acts on the living entity in different degrees. Right? Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, the consciousness is covered by different degrees of lust, just like a mirror is covered with dust, a fire is covered with smoke, or the embryo is covered with the womb. And so different degrees of coverings we can find in different living entities. For example, if you want to see yourself in the mirror and the mirror has this thick dust, dust. Imagine there is a dust in front of the mirror. You can never see yourself. So the living entity also is, although like the very pure, it's covered by different degrees of lust. And lust here means different degrees of propensity to enjoy. The consciousness is not very developed. Right? So different degrees we can also see in the living entities also. The consciousness is covered in different ways. You find so many different kinds of, if you talk to people, you find so many different kinds of people, so many different consciousness. And if you see the living entities also, different degrees of consciousness. There are the human beings who are very sensitive, developed consciousness, and then you have the animals, and then you have the birds, and then you have the fishes, and then you have the insects, the bacteria. So the consciousness is going down. So the covering is higher and higher, right? They say in the depths of the ocean, there are animals that nobody has even discovered so far. We think we have seen so many animals, and we have grouped them under these vertebrates, invertebrates. We have grouped them very nicely. But there are so many living entities, even in this material world, that we have no idea about. And the Shastras give us the information that there are 8.4 million species of life. Right? So these are different degrees of the modes of material nature that combine together to form these different bodies, different species of life. For example, the modes of material nature are compared to three colors, three basic colors. So for example, if you see any color, this is combination of three basic color. What are the three basic color? Anybody knows? Red, green, and yellow. So if you see anything, that is combination of these three colors, right? So any species of life is also different grades of mode of goodness, a little bit of maybe mode of passion, mode of ignorance. So they combine to form the bodies of different species of life. So according to how he acquires the association of the three modes of material nature, the living entity gets the body. So we always say that this life is a preparation and death is the examination, right? So what you prepare, how you prepare your life in this, when we are conscious, determines what you think at the time of death. And what you think at the time of death, that body you will get in the next life. Krishna says, Antakale cha mameva smaran mutta kalevaram yak prayati samadbhavam yati naste antar samsaya. One who remembers me at the time of death will come to me. And just before that, he says, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tajanti ante kalevram tam tam evaiti kaunteya sadatat bhava bhavita. Whatever state of being one remembers at the time of death, that state you'll attain without fail. Right? So we can see throughout the lives, mostly people focus on so many different things. So it's natural at the time of death, they will just remember this. So whatever type of modes of material nature we are associate with, and slowly we get that type of body. For example, if one is too attached to eating meat, then the nature gives you body of a tiger, because the person is too attached to that. So he or she associated with the mode of ignorance, then you get a body as a tiger's body. So the nature is, it is said, there is an English saying, Prabhupada would quote this often: man proposes, God disposes. Man desires, and then God gives. So what we desire, Krishna fulfills. It may not be right now, but if you desire to enjoy like an animal, you'll get animal's body. If you desire to enjoy like a demigod, you do some austerities, you perform some penances, you do some pious activity, you get a body of a demigod. So whatever you desire, that's how everything starts with desire. And then you associate with the modes of nature, and that's how you get the body. So 8.4 million species of life, and among them, we get the information that there are certain number of birds and animals, certain number of beasts, like human beings. It is said there are like 400,000 type of beasts. I don't know what exactly beasts would mean. Maybe not exactly human beings, but I'm also not sure. It says beasts. I would imagine some like some kind of two-legged, but I don't know. So different classes, and some are inferior, some superior, some mediocre. And the gradations of bodies are calculated according to the covering of material energy. In the lower categories, including aquatics, trees, insects, plants, birds, and so forth, spiritual consciousness is almost non-existent. So Srila Prabhupada, he would sometimes say, a dog cannot sit in a Bhagavatam class and inquire about life. A dog does not have this capacity for spiritually inquiring. But a human being has this ability to ask questions. Athartha Brahma Jigyasa, this is how the Vedanta Sutra, it says, Brahma Sutra, it says, the human form of life starts once you ask the questions, who am I, where am I coming from, and where am I going? When you ask these questions, then the human form of life starts. Otherwise, it's mostly just living like animals. So when we were small, we in our universities, we were encouraged to ask questions. They said all these inventions the scientists made, they started by asking questions. For example, Newton, he was sitting under a tree, they say, and an apple fell from the tree. And then Newton questioned, why did the apple fall? And that's how he discovered the law of gravitation. So there are different degrees of questions. And to get the right answer, you have to ask first the right question. Right? So as human beings, we are encouraged by the Shastras to ask questions that are of higher nature. Not just how can I live, how can I eat, where can I find food, how can I defend myself, how can I find a suitable partner, how can I sleep nicely. We are not just meant to be asking these questions. We are meant to ask higher degree of questions. For example, what kind of questions are we meant to ask? Where are we from? What is the purpose of my life? Where am I going? What is my destination? So material civilization right now, we have fast speed cars, but no direction. It's like you're going very fast in the highway, but imagine someone asks you, where are you going? And you say, I don't know. So that is how the material civilization is right now. There is fast, it's going very fast somewhere, but it does not know where it's going. There is no direction. Right? So there is no direction because these questions are missing. These questions are missing from the conversation, as they say. Like when we were small, we were never encouraged to think about death. When I would ask my mother, why do people die, or when will I die, anything about death, she would say, we don't ask these questions. These are questions you don't ask. These are negative questions. But these are facts of life. Everyone is going to die, and what is going to happen after death? So human beings, they have this consciousness. That is why we ask these questions, and then we get the right answer. When you ask these questions, you get the answer. Right? In the mediocre category, the human form of life, spiritual consciousness is comparatively awakened. Right? If you see now, so if you see what we were discussing, 8.4 million species of life, and then you have 400,000 of beasts. And among them, Krishna says, Bahunam Janmanamante Gyanavan Mam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlava. So among those human beings also, thousands of men try to inquire about the truth, and very few know the truth. And even among those, very few surrender onto Vasudeva. So we can imagine the percentage of number of people who surrender unto Krishna. It's very less. So all the jivas in the material world, and how many jivas inquire, and how many jivas eventually come to understanding Vasudev as the Supreme Personality. Right? So very less. So that is why it's a nice opportunity that we have, very nice opportunity that we have, that we are able to participate in the, firstly, very nice opportunity that we have the human form of life, and the secondly, it's a nice opportunity that we are able to inquire. We have food on our table, we have water to drink, we have eyes to see, you know. So we are fortunate. We thank the Lord for all the things that are given to us. There is a Christian saint who once said, if your prayer is only thank you, that is also enough. Right? So just say thank you. That is a prayer in itself, because there is a lot to be thankful for. You know, just as human beings having something to eat every day, water to drink, air to breathe, a place to sleep. It's a lot to be thankful for. And then on top of that, you have the ability to chant the holy names. We have the ability to render service to Krishna, to the devotees. So that is something really amazing. Srila Prabhupada, he would say, if I tell you how fortunate you are, you would faint. So that's so human beings, they are quite fortunate. That's the point. And if one is just grateful for having received this, it can really change our consciousness. If we are just grateful, then it can really change the way we go about in our day. There is a saying, if you are not grateful, you are a great fool. Because only a fool is not grateful for the things that they have, you know. So nowadays, this according in the psychology, we have this something called gratitude, attitude of gratitude. You know, there is a study which says that when you have gratitude in your consciousness, other form of emotions do not exist. Like when you are grateful, then things like resentment do not exist. Things like anger, you know, envy, all these things do not exist when you are grateful. So anytime you feel sad, or you know, you feel a sense of low self-esteem, or you feel like the whole world is against me, you know, what we do is we just become grateful to Krishna for what we have, and immediately we can see a change in our consciousness. Immediately we can see that we have so many things to be grateful for, right? So, and this is only possible in the human form of life, like Srila Prabhupada is explaining. Human form of life, spiritual consciousness is comparatively awakened. So if you go on the street, and if you are able to talk to people, you know, you can stop people and you can say, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? You know, when I talk to people, one of the most common thing that really strikes them is when I say, oh, in this age we are all very stressed, and everyone agrees. Everyone agrees to the fact that, oh, I'm so stressed. You know, so you can connect to people, and you can even ask them, what do you think about death? What do you think about what happens to the person when the person dies, although they may not want to hear spiritual knowledge, at least they are able to appreciate the question, or at least they understand that this is a question, a valid question: what happens after death? An animal, someone with animal consciousness, or an animal cannot appreciate these questions. What happens after death? Why do I care? I'm just living right now, and after death there is nothing. So someone with an elevated consciousness can appreciate questions like these, like what is the meaning? What is the meaning of my life? What is the meaning of my existence? Right? So in the superior life form, spiritual consciousness is fully awakened. So superior life forms, like those of the elevated souls, devotees, demigods, the spiritual consciousness is fully awakened. Then the living entity understands his real position and tries to escape the influence of material energy by developing Krishna consciousness. So the living entity understands the real position. So what is the real position of the living entity? Jivera Swarupahai Krishnera Nityadas. Right? That is the constitutional position. Just like the natural dharma of a chili is to be hot. What if one day you bite the chili and it's sugar, it's sweet? Although people like sweet, you don't want a chili to be sweet, right? So a living entity by nature is a servant. By nature is supposed to connect with Krishna, and that's his real position. And without this, any amount of material happiness will always be a little bit too less. There will always be something that will not be fulfilled in the heart. And when a living entity understands this, then he tries to escape the influence of material energy by developing Krishna consciousness. So only a human being is able to do this when they understand by questioning and they hear from the Shastras the real position. There is the Sambandha, Avidya, and Prayojana. So you have the process, and then you come to an understanding um, by gaining some knowledge from the Shastras, right? And then you can exit the influence of the material energy. Otherwise, it's very difficult. The material energy is too strong. Krishna says, Daivihi esha gunamai mama maya duratteya mam eva prapadyante mayam etam tarimtate. I think we have all have this experience that the material energy is too strong. You just cannot do it by yourself. It's like swimming. A river is flowing down, and you're trying to swim upwards. Have you ever swum in a river, Prabhu? How difficult it is to swim against the stream. It depends on the river. Okay, maybe the Rhine is flat, so you can do it, but you cannot. Okay, right. Yeah, depends on the river. So material energy is a very fast-flowing river. Going down, it's just impossible to swim upwards unless you have help. Right. So nice and short purport by Srila Prabhupada. Is there any comments or questions? So by developing Krishna consciousness, we can exit the material energy. So how do we develop Krishna consciousness? This is sadhana bhakti, like we just discussed in the beginning. The process of the sadhana bhakti that was kindly given to us by Srila Prabhupada. That's something also we are grateful for. Of all the living entities wandering in the universe, somehow we are fortunate to get this seed of devotional service planted in the heart. Right? So we are very thankful for the opportunity also, and thankful for the association also of the devotees. Sometimes it can be tough to live with devotees. Right? So many things, It's like you have a big horn, and like animals, when they have big horn and they are moving, they are poking other animals also. Imagine you are walking like this, you hit so many people. So we all have these big horns, and when we walk, we are poking everyone. So we can be how we can overcome that is by being thankful again, thankful for the association that we have around us, you know, thankful that somebody can correct us. Imagine there are so many who don't get corrected if they do something wrong. At least we have the opportunity to be corrected when we do something wrong. So we are thankful for all those things. And the more gratitude we cultivate, the more advancement also we make. It's a sign of high consciousness that you're grateful for all the things that we have, and you are grateful even for the difficulties. That's tough. Kunti Maharani prays like this. Of course, we cannot pray like that the difficulties come to us. But when they come, we can use that as a stepping stone to move forward, to be grateful and see if we can learn any lesson from that difficulty and move forward. Okay, there is nothing. I'll end here. Thank you very much for your attention. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhaktavinda ki